And welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Bums podcast. All of this is brought to you by Love You Hard TV. Once again, it's your host, Rob, a.k.a. B-Ball Archives. And I got the bums in the house, AJ James. It's been a while. It feels like it's been a while, but it's only been a few days. But not seeing y'all for a few days, that's just too much.
I agree. It's good to be back.
There's a lot going on, man. I'm up here in Amarillo, Texas, the Panhandle, as we call it in Texas, and it is a lot colder than it is down there. They got snow like 2 days ago. The wind over here in West Texas has been nuts. I mean, man, this trip has been a very interesting one, and you know, I'd love to talk about it one day, but we're not here to talk about my travels. We're here to talk about ball, specifically our Spurs.
Los Spurs.
So with that being said, thank you for coming. As we say all the time, go Spurs, go.
Yeah. But seriously, I mean, that's kind of what I was saying after our most recent win against Brooklyn. I was cheering because this is what Devin Vassell could be if he showed more consistency. If he took better shots, more in rhythm shots, not fading away as much. I think this is like, obviously he was 8 for 9 for a large portion of the game from beyond the arc. That's not really reasonable. You can't really sustain that to a large degree. But I think that this, even if we saw half of this, 60% of this in the future, that's amazing. That's what we need.
Well, yeah, and I think you saw Devin Vassell and a few people in the media prominently around the Spurs mention him breaking out of a shooting slump, and to an extent it's that, but I think it's largely, Rob, more to your point, it's shot selection, it's better mechanics, it's all of those things. Now we've seen it. Now I want to see it again. Be consistent. Win us a couple of games down the stretch by yourself, because that's what he did against Brooklyn. He won us that game.
Yeah, especially when we have De'Aaron Fox struggling the way he has been. I mean, that's been kind of an eye opener these past few games. You know, he hasn't really played that well. Like, his numbers are terrible right now. I think he's shooting like 20% from three or something like that. So, you know, now we're finding out that obviously he definitely needs the I think it's a pinky is the issue that he has. So, you know, I want to see these kids win. They have something to play for. I mean, we don't have Wemby, I get that, but they also haven't played in a significant game in their entire career. If we can somehow make it to the play-in and they get one look at a playoff game so they can kind of feel the intensity, feel kind of what that's going to be like, that iron sharpens iron. And that's not a bad place to be, especially going into a year, which is next year, where you're going to have high expectations. High expectations.
Yeah. And, you know, it's crazy. It's hard to remember that it was only 3 years ago now that we were in a play-in game. So these guys do have a little bit of that do-or-die experience. Obviously, it didn't go so well, but it's there. And even if you don't get there, which, quite frankly, I don't expect them to get to the play-in at this point, if you have something to play for in mid-March, that's better than you've gotten the past couple of years.
Right. And you got to treat those games, even if they're not going to be playoff games, you got to treat them as if they are and go out there and bust your ass, because you know summer you're not going to be getting those game-like reps, and this is your chance to try to gel and really work on, hey, what's that second unit going to look like when Vic's not out on the floor? This is the perfect time to iron out that part of the rotation.
To that point, I think this is really where you miss Pop. Because, or just anybody that's been there before, and maybe you can lean on Brett Brown with his expertise, quote unquote, or at least his experience. You need a coach that's had those playoff moments, been in those battles, so they can at least set a stage. And I'm not sure if Mitch Johnson knows those buttons to push to get that kind of desperate effort out of these guys on a consistent basis.
No, yeah, that's fair. And also, hey, it's crunch time. The Spurs aren't the only ones that are playing well. There's a lot of teams out there that are absolutely balling out right now, and it's going to be a race on seeding. And all these games here coming up are super important. So the past two games that we played, if they can play like that for the rest of the year, I'll be very happy about it. I'm not expecting anything big. I'm not expecting us to win the championship. But if we can be competitive against top teams in the NBA and hopefully not give up 142 points, but if we can play, some really good teams and keep up with them and then beat the bottom feeders like we have, it's a good end of the season.
And really, I don't think there's a wrong answer here. You win games, you gain confidence going into next season, you get a little bit better of a better idea of who's going to be here long term. You lose games, you get a better draft pick. So, 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. Is, in your guys' opinion, is there really a correct course of action? I think both of them are pretty ideal.
Right. I think that we can fail spectacularly while still developing our young talent. I don't see why we can't have our cake and eat it too in this scenario. Exactly. And even to your point, like a game like us losing by 14 to OKC, that's not a bad loss. Like when I think about a game where J-Dub has 41 and SGA has an efficient 31, and we only lose by 14 to the number one team in the West with the number one defense, it's like, dude, that's really not that bad when you factor in we don't have Wemby.
It was closer than 14. They stretched it out at the end, but that was a pretty close game for 3.5 quarters. So, that's the kind of effort that you want to see without Wemby. You just don't want to see them pack it in, fold it up, and kind of pull what Phoenix is pulling right now, where mentally you're in Cancun.
Dude, Phoenix.
Right.
Let's pause real quick and talk about Phoenix for like 1 minute.
Do we have to? I don't even think they want to talk about Phoenix.
What is happening in Phoenix? This is one of the biggest implosions I've ever seen in the NBA, and the other ones I'm comparing it to involve Kevin Durant.
It's the biggest failure in NBA history. They have the highest payroll in league history, and they're not even gonna make the play-in.
They've won 3 games out of their last 10. They are not looking good. And yeah, to your point, James, it's not only led to absolute disaster on the court, but financial ruin as well. It's like you have no place to go but just to absolutely blow it up because you can't reconcile the fact that you tried to trade KD to multiple places. They didn't work out. Those deals didn't land, and you got stuck with them. And then now he feels a certain way about it, and you can't go back.
And Bud is going to be the fall guy there. You're already seeing the body language shift around him.
Once again.
And yeah, he's the easiest fall guy in the league, it seems. I don't know if it's his face or something, but it just seems like wherever he goes, he gets blamed
every time.
And you had the KD, shaking off his hand the other night.
It's like, hey, don't look too much into that. You weren't a part of the huddle. I'm like, okay, KD, we all saw, bro.
You have I forget what the exact stat line was for Brad Beal last night. I think it was 0 points, 2 boards, 2 assists, and just like he's got the worst contract in the league. You were saying, Rob, blow it up, but even that's going to be difficult for them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just mean like basically continue doing what you're doing, but maybe actually get rid of KD. You're not going to be able to move on Beal because of that no trade clause and the fact that he's absolute dog water most nights. But it's just the fact that, $50 million for a player with that kind of production is absolutely insane. The Suns. Yeah, we just took a segue from talking Spurs basketball to dunk on you real quick.
Yeah. No, we've been dunking on the Mavs a lot, but you guys are right there. Well, and are they on the schedule coming up? I know we played them recently, but are they coming up again?
I don't know, but I just the only highlight I can think of Bradley Beal this year is him pushing Anthony Edwards. That's the only thing I can think of. So like they're just in hot water, and I know that Spurs are currently like in favor of getting Kevin Durant in the offseason. I don't know if I want that after seeing all this, and his contract's way too high, and he's kind of old, so I don't think
Anthony Edwards is another fun diversion that we could take at some point, but I won't get into that.
Yeah. I don't really know if we should take a gamble on a guy like KD. I don't want to bring him to San Antonio and ruin what the young guys are doing and how they're gelling right now. That's just
it would feel a bit like when we got Powell. Like, this would have been really cool 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 5 or 6 years ago,
Yeah. It was like when Powell went to Chicago and San Antonio was like almost there. I think it was because the symphony wasn't good enough. And
It's exactly what it was.
it's like, man, we would have won 2 or 3 straight championships with Powell and Tim Duncan there.
Yeah.
What could have been?
Oh yeah, it's hard to argue that. But yeah,
Getting back
I was
this
about to say
now,
let's segue
like-
back to some Spurs hoops, and I think we got to brag on Stephon Castle a little bit. Can we a little bit?
I think we got to brag on Mitch Johnson a little bit too, or at least give him some flowers for
Yeah.
changing his ways and giving Steph some burn.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. I think that he's played 30 minutes a game over the last 4 games, and in that stretch, about 24 points a game and 6 boards, 5 dimes, a steal and a half on 50% shooting. What are we talking about here? Let's get this guy consistent minutes more often.
Yeah.
Energy
Absolutely.
too. It's he brings it, and he reminds you of someone that came from that UConn team that played for Dan Hurley, that has that just kind of like anxious energy all the time.
Yeah,
So
Emeka Okafor.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I think Mitch Johnson definitely listened to the podcast and was like, you know what? I'm going to show these guys who the coach is. I'm going to play Steph Castle, and he's not going to do shit. And then all of a sudden, he's like, I had to put him in the doghouse, dog. I just had to put him in the doghouse so he could respond. And that he just mentally strong. So either way, I'm glad Steph Castle is playing these games, because at least 2 or 3 times a game, you're going, what a cool dunk that was. And I'm just really liking his new hair, too. He got it redone. Looks great. And I just, I'm really excited about this rookie, man. I'm really excited. If we can just continue to play him and develop him, I mean, him and Wemby together, that'd be fun.
As long as that shot keeps coming along, I think the sky's the limit for Steph, and these reps, no matter what happens with the team and the play-in, these reps are going to be invaluable.
Oh yeah. And you're already seeing him take advantage of these reps in a really meaningful way. Like going back to the OKC game, there was times where he was driving into the lane, would really just put contact on J-Dub and finish at the rim. And it's like, you are taking on a larger, stronger defender, a guy who is, touted as a really amazing two-way player. You're going right at him as a rookie. And then later in that game, he went right at Isaiah Hartenstein, crossed him up, and left him stumbling backwards, and then hit the midi. And it's like, dude, you are showing a diverse bag already, and in a very polished way. So it's like, wow, that's just
fear in
yeah,
his game at all.
no fear.
And that's super refreshing to see, because normally you see these rookies come into this system and they think themselves out of the rotation. They get out there and they're just hesitant. They have this deer in the headlights look, and it takes probably longer on average in San Antonio for a young player to get acclimated with the on-court system than you would see in other places. And some of that, I think, might have been Pop's old ways. He didn't always trust rookies, and I think he's come a long way with that. But, it's a funny function of you get more special rookies in if you're not very good. And so...
Yeah, it's kind of a quandary. You don't want to be in the place where the good rookies are, but yet you're very, very happy when you stumble upon one.
You do for a while, because that's how you get good. You've seen it in baseball. It's like, if you're bad, bookmark it. 5 years, those teams are going to be on top of the league. It's going to flip over. And I think basketball has a little bit of that with all of the way the CBA has been fleshed out with the aprons and everything like that.
Right.
No, that makes sense.
If we can start seeing Castle get to the free throw line the way James Harden does and Ja Morant, I mean this kid could average 25 points a game here in the next couple of years. I mean he's that impressive, and if, just like you said, James, if his shots continue to develop, and it looks great, it looks fine. Obviously, he's get more consistent, but with him and Devin Vassell and everyone else kind of playing their role, I think now we're kind of seeing everyone figure out where they lie with this roster, at least for the time being. Seems like everyone has their place, and that's what's giving us a lot more gelling time and just playing Steph Castle and giving him the ball, let him work.
Also, speaking of shooting, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Jeremy Sohan. 32.5% from 3-point this season.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's
that's
not
a big
it's not
improvement for him.
right. It's not league average, but at the same time, it's inching towards being a serviceable 3-point shooter, which is right where we want him.
You just need to have someone say, I can't let him get 2 open shots in a row. They could go in, and then we could be in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. And then he drives and then creates based on that. And he doesn't really need to distribute if you're just collapsing on him and he's just dishing it.
We saw it a little bit in the Brooklyn game, and we've seen it a little bit in the past week or so. The point guard experiment last year didn't work, but it wasn't fruitless.
Yeah.
It developed him in ways that you can see now. His floor vision is better. His awareness is better offensively. And so I think that's a promising mold to look at when you see a guy like Steph Castle.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to get his nose in some business, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That's true.
I mean, you need those guys, though.
That scuffle against OKC was hilarious. I thought that was, man, what are we doing? That's the softest thing I've ever seen in my life. 3 people got ejected? Like, are you kidding me?
Bro.
What'd they do?
Champagne should not have been ejected. He should not have been.
Ejection. Did he get 2 Ts? Was that what it was?
Well, I think it was one of his technicals was like it was like an escalated technical, like a violent technical or something. They labeled it something, and then they were able to eject him. But I don't think it was his second tech. I don't think it was his second tech.
Okay, because I hadn't seen anything about anything being rescinded or anything like that. So
right,
I'm guessing it's standing.
It's soft, is what it is.
Right.
Like, soft, AJ.
This is ridiculous. I was watching the game like, oh, okay, cool. And then, 5 minutes later, ejection. I'm like, are you, for what?
Right. That's like something you see at like freaking a rec league. That's something you see at Gold's Gym.
Bro, rec league's way more violent.
Right.
They throw punches. I've been on the
Rob,
receiving
I
end of
remember
them.
playing in a rec league game with you. This was a decade ago now, at least. And it was legitimately like a little bit scary. Like,
Dude, that's the vibe I want to cultivate on a basketball court. I want to be like
11 o'clock at night. You and me were the only people on our teams that didn't have tattoos. And I've like never heard language spoken at these referees. We were playing at some Catholic church. It was, like I said, it was legitimately like a little scary. That's, like you said, the vibe that we should cultivate.
Oh yeah. I mean, I like that energy whenever we're hooping. I like to, maybe we'll get in a fight, maybe we won't. That's just how it is.
Rob, maybe we'll get in a fight. We're definitely getting in a fight if we're playing. Like, I played with you for over half of my life, and I would say about 40% of the time something has to happen.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's gonna do something.
Dude,
it's inevitable.
We're getting completely off topic, but like several times, like, oh, let's go shoot some baskets. We're on one side of the court shooting hoops. Hey, you guys want to play? Yeah, let's play. And then like 10 minutes later, man, fuck you, yeah, pussy, I'll kick your ass, I'll beat you. Oh, dude, it's so much fun to play with Rob. I highly recommend it. Everyone should definitely play with Rob at some point, because also Rob's tall and he's very intimidating when he gets going, because he starts hitting shots and then it's on after that, because they have nothing to say. It's so much fun to watch.
But that blacktop edge that kind of makes you think, am I going to get in a fight today? Is this dangerous? Is something that a young team needs. Yeah. And bringing it back to the Spurs, like, you see guys like Sohan, you see guys like Steph Castle who aren't afraid to get in there and mix it up a little bit and talk their talk. That's how you build confidence. Vic isn't afraid either. So it's fun to not only see talented young guys, but bold young guys.
You think they get that from Chris Paul?
It can't hurt.
Right. I mean, maybe they get it from Bismack.
Are we going to talk about Bismack now?
We got to talk about a little bit of Bismack.
Retire his number.
Return of the Mac.
Yeah, seriously. Return of Bismack. Yeah, return of Bismack. But seriously, whenever we play Bismack Biyombo 23 minutes or more, it's a double-double with a block.
Dude, every time.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, he was out of the league. What if he would have been our backup 5 this entire year? Like, I didn't have that high of an opinion of Bismack Biyombo, but having him play for my team has really changed that.
Yeah, absolutely. And he fits the Spurs culture too. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good fit. I hope we talk to him over the offseason. I would love for him to be our backup center and even play with Wemby in some spurts here and there. But I think you have him and we will see what happens with Massey, but we'll go from there. But or Bassey, sorry, what did I say? Massey's for it. Sorry, Bassey. We'll see what we can pick up to. If you add that to a Nas Reed and stuff like that, I mean that position all of a sudden gets taken care of with just the play of Bismack Biyombo. It's great to see.
We mentioned Kevin Durant earlier, and I would much rather go after Nas Reed, and it could be a little reminiscent of 2015 going into 2016 when the Spurs updated their backcourt and turned a broken Thiago splitter and a piece that I'm not remembering into David West and LaMarcus Aldridge. It's just like that. It just took care of itself. And so, you're never too far away from a solution that can really turn your team around.
No, especially now when we're living in an NBA where I think Wembanyama is that 10-year plan. If you're looking at a guy that's like, hey, I'm 25, 26, 27 years old, and I want to hitch my wagon to somebody that's a great 10-year guy, Vic is that guy.
I think I've heard Brian Windhorst was the one saying it is like guys that fit that mold that you were talking about, Rob, those tentpole guys where you see secondary stars want to latch onto, they've never been 21 years old. And that's something that the Spurs have for their advantage for a decade going forward. So not only can they attract tentpole stars, but they have the guy that everyone wants to come play with, and he's only 21 years old.
Hey, but he can't be the face of the league because he's not American. So just don't forget that.
Well, do you want to be the face of the league? Ask LeBron. He might tell you no.
Right. I mean, I think he benefited greatly from being the face of the league, and he's going to retire a billionaire because he was the face of the league. So, yeah, we're watching productions that his production company has produced because of his large success, being the face of the league. So, I think it came with a lot of burdens, but he has benefited greatly from it.
Oh yeah, and it should come with a lot of burdens, and there is a uniquely American thing to that. But I think when Stephen A. said that, he was just being Stephen A.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron's Mandarin is so good now. I mean, he can do full sentences, not just talking points. Him and John Cena chop it up.
I was like, is it as good as John Cena's Mandarin?
Just as good, man. Just as good. Oh yeah, we got to talk about that later. But
I got something for Travis Scott.
Perfect. Well, I have a crazy idea, and this is just me thinking as we've been talking. So definitely jump in, please. What if the Spurs decided to make a couple phone calls up to Dallas to Nico Collins and be like, hey, since you don't like your job and you want to get fired, you want to make another trade? We'll give you a second-round pick in 2032 for Derek Lively. And he's like, that's a good deal. I mean, I wouldn't hate it.
I don't know if Nico Harrison's going to be making too many deals in the future. I think that he's been scrutinized to a point where I don't know if a GM has been this scrutinized in NBA history. I really don't.
I don't know if the GM has done what he's done in
right.
history.
I didn't say it wasn't worthy. It's worthy.
That's fair.
It's worthy, but I mean, the amount of people that are criticizing him, talking shit about him, making fun of him, it's an all-time high, and I don't know if he wants to step into that trade arena again unless it's like, okay, maybe a small little tiny trade that's a win or something. I don't know.
It's like the opposite of dealing with Danny Ainge. It's like
Yeah.
people are hesitant to deal with Danny Ainge because they know if they're agreeing to something, there's got to be another shoe dropping.
Right.
Well, it kind of goes to show you when that Mavs Laker game happened, and when the Mavs fans are chanting to the GM, they're saying "Thank you, Nico." Like I've never seen a GM get like that. I've heard crowds yell "Sell the team" and all that stuff, but to get a thank you from the opposing team as a GM is absolutely bananas.
Right. And as much as we hate on the Mavs, I don't want to see what happened to Kyrie. Yeah, none of us want to see that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can all have our bones about what Kyrie's done or said in the past, but that's just, at
And
that
now-
age, that's
Dude,
killer.
And now AD's like, well, if he's not going to be around, I'm not going to play either. So like that
Can you blame him?
No, absolutely. No. I mean, it's Anthony Davis, so you know he's going to sit out regardless. So just this whole month is probably one of the craziest downfalls we've ever seen. To go from a potential NBA championship team to just an absolute drop.
I saw
mean,
someone
drop.
said that feel bad for Mavs fans because they had to go through this with the Cowboys, and then someone quote tweeted and it was like, Cowboys fans just got Luka. I don't know what you're talking about.
Dude, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah.
No. And the Lakers, oh boy, I mean, we can talk about this a little bit, but that offense.
But yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why Luka and LeBron work so well together is that Luka is so unselfish and makes the players around him so much better that when LeBron is on free throw line extended or he's chilling in the short corner, all he has to do is cut back door, and that's easy offense. Luka's going to find him every time, and it's allowing LeBron to be more efficient, and that's why you're seeing things like him moving up into fifth in the MVP voting at this stage in his career, which is fucking crazy.
LeBron playing off ball is a different kind of LeBron because he doesn't have to worry about the distribution and getting everyone else involved. And I can't pull up the tweet because I'm airplaying my background, but I saw a tweet last night that it was like LeBron's stats as compared to like JJ Redick's career. So it was like LeBron when JJ Redick was at Duke, LeBron when JJ Redick was in the NBA, when he became a starter at year 15, when he was a podcast host, when he was his coach, and it's all like 27, 8, and 7, like the entire way down. It's one of the most ridiculous things. And so when you have that kind of consistency, and then you add a young star like Luka Doncic, who's kind of, you know, in that shadow of LeBron, same mold of player, you know, at least on the offensive end, and is kind of coming up on a lot of LeBron's records. You have a scary offense. I'll tell you that.
And then you have a head coach like JJ Redick who's meticulous about his job. Like I know we had our doubts at the beginning of the season with him, but I mean he's as a young coach to be able to, I guess, reel in two alpha males as in LeBron James and Luka. I mean that's not easy to do, and you kind of get stepped on. But he seems to have a good hold on everyone. It seems like that team now kind of has a very definite goal in mind, and that is to make it deep in the playoffs. And you know, if JJ Redick is serious about the way he coaches and he spends all night thinking of ways to stop people, beating them in a 7-game series is going to be really, really tough.
This is the best team they've had since the bubble year, no doubt.
Yeah,
not even close. And so, yeah, I agree with pretty much every word you said there, AJ. You know,
most people do.
We discussed the JJ Redick experiment at length before the games got started, but it's hard not to look at it as a success right now, especially when you juxtapose it against the last couple of years of Darvin Ham. And I know that hurts to say about Darvin Ham, who's a fellow Red Raider, but I mean, proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Sure is.
I mean, yeah, we don't want to shit on Darvin Ham too much, but his coaching schemes and his player rotations and his overall philosophy was not very inspiring, even though he had one of the most impressive in-game dunks in history, where he yammed on Anton Jameson in the 1996 NCAA tournament. Go Red Raiders.
To break a backboard at that size, pretty impressive.
And he dunked on Anton Jameson. I think that's one of the lesser known facts about that is it just wasn't on a nobody. It was on somebody that ended up scoring 20,000 points in the NBA.
Dude,
Yeah, people don't realize that.
and that picture is so badass. That picture and Rob, if you clip this, if you can get that picture, that thing is just that the you couldn't
glass
you couldn't
showering
even
down.
get like a photographer to make that picture even better. Like if you try to how the high schools now do like the flaming balls and like you take the picture, oh that's cool. Like you could not do that with Darvin Ham. And I'm glad that we were able to give Darvin Ham flowers because we're coming up on March Madness, so we might be doing a little bit of bracketology here coming up. Super dope. I'm super excited about that. But right now we're talking about NBA, and yes, the Lakers are a good team, and so are the Warriors. And it's weird. It's weird to say these things, especially the way the season started.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know Oklahoma City is obviously they're what 50-11, like they're insane, and
51 and 11.
51-11, and Denver's still lurking. You know, Shea is probably going to win the MVP this year, but Nikola Jokic might be having the best offensive season that we've ever seen.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
He seems to set that mark every season.
It's like I don't really know how he can get more efficient, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to be like top 5 in 3-point shooting now." And it's like, "What the fuck? Like how?
He's like, I'm just going to shoot 50% from 3 all year.
Like
on
how?
volume.
Just completely crazy." But guys, if we're going to talk about some completely crazy things, can we talk about the 200 games straight with 20 assists or more that the Spurs just got?
I can't believe they just set an NBA record. Like,
I think it's pretty impressive because I think it goes to show that even though we're getting waxed a lot of those games, we're still playing team basketball. We're still moving the ball around, and we're still facilitating. So I think, regardless of how you look at it, you know, I don't hate it, and I think this is impressive.
the beautiful game is still alive. Mm-hmm. The pieces look different. The numbers aren't as great, but the beautiful game is still alive.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well said.
I need a Boris Dio 2.0 though.
Well,
I need someone out there like dancing like a big bear.
But see, I think that's why now they need to give Jeremy some croissants. But I think that's why they played him at the point last year, because that's what Boris Diaw did coming into the league. And so I think you look at a player like Jeremy Sohan, and he's not going to be your 20, 25-point scorer. He's that everything guy that Boris blossomed into throughout his time in Phoenix, and then we saw it happen again in San Antonio. So, yeah, I think that archetype is there, and it's great to have a culture like the Spurs do, because you'll see Boris Diaw just come into the facility every now and then, and that kind of experience and knowledge is invaluable if he imparts any of it to the young guys.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's definitely something that's going to benefit us in the long run. But guys, I actually want to bring up like a crazy stat or like a crazy fact about the Rockets game the other night, and that was one of the only times in Spurs history, I believe it's only happened 5 times, where the starters, no one in the starting 5, none of them in double figures.
Yeah. That was weird.
Yeah, that was really strange.
Yeah, that was the second time they played the Rockets this year where it just wasn't their night.
Right. But it honestly sent me on a deep dive. I wanted to know legitimately, like, what was the worst starting 5 that has ever done anything? And I ended up finding a Bucks team from about 12 years ago. OJ Mayo, Ersan Ilyasova, Karan Butler, Luke Ridnour, and Zaza Pachulia. he who should not be named. They scored a whopping 18 points as a starting five in a game.
What? An OJ Mayo lineup?
What was the final score of that game? Do you know?
I actually don't know the final score of that game, but my God, as a starting five, you scored 18 points in a game?
Well,
think about it,
OJ
12
Mayo
years
had
ago,
probably like 16 of those.
12 years ago, that was the fumes of Luke Riddenauer and the fumes of Caron Butler. Neither one of those guys were anywhere close to their prime.
Yeah.
Zaza
No, you're right.
Zaza couldn't score at all. It was OJ Mayo, and who was the other one, Rob? Ilyasova.
Yeah, Ilyasova. Yeah.
Must have had a bad night from three.
Yeah, honestly, I think maybe Ilyasova was the only one that was doing well. I think he did actually shoot 50% that night. But yeah, just really crazy. I was like, man, this is a horrible performance from a starting five. Like who actually has done the worst? And that was the worst one I could find.
We're glad it wasn't
Those
us.
Bucks teams were absolutely dreadful, though. The year or two they got, or before they got Giannis, and when Giannis was a rookie, they were poochies.
That was rough.
Yeah, they were cheeks and not the Maurice kind.
Yeah, Luke Riddenauer used to torch us when he played for the Sonics. That was never fun. You're like, why is Luke Riddenauer going off against us? You're like, Tony. God.
Was he one of those 03 draft guys?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Luke Riddenauer came out.
I'm not good on my
He
Luke
came out of
Riddenauer
Oregon. I remember where he went
draft
to college,
history.
but
He was a bucket though for a while. He was a bucket.
I didn't know I had to bone up on my Luke Riddenauer history.
You always have to. But yeah,
That's that, Rob. But that's pretty wild. Like 18 points. What do you, as a head coach? What do you tell your team? Like, hey guys, y'all want to talk about what happened? like, what do you even say?
how
to
do you
them?
feel about the execution of your team tonight? I'm all for it.
right. Yeah. Next question. Seriously, like, yeah. You honestly, I'd probably give one of those pop responses like happy. Like, I'm not supposed to be happy. Like, how do I judge happy? I'm in the middle of a competition.
Just a dead stare and just like turn that person to stone, because that's what Pop would do. Pop would just be like,
Yeah. He was basically like the Medusa of NBA coaches.
"You're not wrong." I had someone ask me about Pop on a business call today. They were like, "What do you think Pop is going to do?" I'm just like, man, how much time do you have?
Right.
You're like, so there's a podcast I listen to called the Baseline Bums Podcast on WRTV.
I don't listen to it. I'm on it.
Yeah. Yeah. He's in it.
James just
Nobody
plugging-
wants to be that guy, though.
James is just
Hey,
plugging
listen
his
to my
podcast during Zoom calls.
But yeah.
So, we have, how many more games do we have left? Like around 22?
They're 26 and 33, I believe. So 23, I think.
Yeah, something like that. So, you know,
Or maybe they're 26 and 34. 22, 23.
with everything going on, it's not completely out of the question. We make a little push. Are we going to talk about what's it called? Pritchard going off?
Yeah, let's do it.
Pritchard and D. White.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
it's
go ahead.
The first pair of Celtics teammates ever, I think, to score 40 points in a game.
yeah.
And
That
there's
was nuts.
history there.
Yeah, Bill Simmons is dropping that documentary right now, so there's definitely a lot of history. And shout out to Derek White, man. That's one guy that you can look back on and just be like, we drafted him, we saw him in Colorado, we saw him and we got him, and then we shipped him when we needed to ship him. But he's found so much success in Boston, and that just goes to show you just how we develop players in the organization that we have. And obviously sending him to a historic place like Boston, and he just fits in just so perfectly there.
Bill Simmons got to clean his walls off before he makes any kind of documentary. him and half the city of Boston, because the white guy scored 40 points.
right. Literally the white guys. but whenever you think about it, if you were to place a bet and say, "Hey, two Celtics are about to drop 40 pieces tonight," who the fuck would bet it would be Derek White and Peyton Pritchard? Like, I mean,
Neither would be Tatum or Brown. Like,
right. And even if you were to add a third guy in, I'd be like, yeah, maybe Porzingis would drop a 40 piece. but never those two.
I can't believe, and I know Peyton Pritchard's a shooter. I just can't believe he put up enough shots to score 40 in a game on that team.
Right.
Well, it helped when Jason Tatum was in street clothes. So it's like you get green lights all day when that happens, and
it feels so good to watch that team though, because it's like that's what a championship team looks like. That's you win games without Jaylen Brown, without Jason Tatum.
Yep.
That reminds me of what the Spurs used to do.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. And that's a wild performance.
We'll be back there sooner rather than later.
Oh, I believe it. I have faith. It's just tough. We talked about it last time I was on. It's a sudden recalibration of expectations.
But they're expectations now.
Yes, and I think we will be able to adjust those expectations again in the next few months when we have people healthy. Wemby is recovered. Fox has surgery. We know who we're getting in the draft and how they're going to be able to contribute.
See how the lottery plays out.
Right. We'll know so much more in a few months.
How Nas Reed fits in our system.
Right.
Yeah, that's if I was to have a Spurs wish list, that's number one.
Facts. You speak no lies. But yeah, guys, that's feeling like a good episode. I mean, I feel like we touched on a lot of good stuff. We touched on a lot of Spurs topics. We touched on some Lakers shenanigans. We dunked on Dallas again, of course. And Phoenix. Good Lord, I forgot about that for a little bit.
Are y'all ready to dunk on some other people?
I think we are. I think it's only fitting. And I think I'm going to start us off with a good yam.
Please, Rob.
Lead the way.
All right.
Hey, Rob.
I've had a couple of pretty large commercials this week, and frankly, they've been kind of frustrating and for very, very stupid reasons. I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm going to dunk on SD cards today, right here, right now. Why the fuck am I losing sleep over an SD card corrupting or failing in 2025 when this bullshit technology came out in 1999? Fucking Bill Clinton was getting blown in the office when this shit was coming out. Why the fuck am I losing sleep over this goddamn bullshit and we're still renting cameras that are using SD cards when we can use solid state drives, CFast 2.0, like SDXC cards? Like, there's so many other fucking cards we can use, but yet we're SDing it still. It's antiquated. Literally, it's a fucking antique of a technology. Why the fuck are we still building cameras that use this piece of shit? Fucking SD cards. Right, seriously. Yeah, can I record on a laser disc next, you fucking half-wit?
It's just like the old 80s, 90s style camcorder that's like a fucking box.
Put it on the shoulder like this. So, Rob, is that a continuation of your dunk from last week? Because you dunked on the renting company.
I mean, maybe. I did dunk on Austin Movie Gear last week, but at the same time, I think this is different. This is a technology-based dunk. This is more of like why haven't we just built better things, like better cameras that use a different form of just collecting media? It just doesn't fully make sense.
Yeah, well, how come we don't have something that just goes directly to the cloud? Like, wouldn't that be
you would think
the
in
next
2025?
step?
Right. I mean, like I record on. Fuck it. I'm just gonna show you right now. I don't.
Your phone can go straight to the cloud, can it? I mean, like, pretty much you just plug it into the computer and your phone can do it. So I don't know why we don't have a camera that can.
Right. I record directly onto these Samsung 1 terabyte solid state drives. Like, perfect. Like, no one needs to be recording on these anymore. Like, no one needs this shit anymore. Why am I having to rent these fucking things just because they write at a certain speed? It's just like, God damn it. Fuck this bullshit. You got dunked on SD cards.
Thank you for coming to Rob's Media Corner for the evening.
Seriously, though, I mean, damn.
That's frustrating as hell, man.
Yeah. I'm recording 8K footage onto an SD card technology invented 26 years ago.
I can't believe that even is compatible.
It almost isn't.
AJ, who you dunking on?
Well, I'm going to be dunking on something that you can't really see, but you can definitely feel. And it's the wind. I'm going to dunk on the wind. Being out here in West Texas, guys, and that big breeze came in through New Mexico, it was about 60-mile-an-hour wind. I
miss it.
No, it was terrible, man. And it was thunderstorms, and then it was windy, and then that also turned into dust out here. If anyone's been out here to West Texas, there's a lot of dirt, and there's dirt everywhere. And from Midland to Lubbock, as I was driving, I saw three 18-wheelers tipped over because of the wind. My car is still completely dirty from all the dust. And then when the wind hit Fort Worth, my backyard furniture is now flipped over. Luckily, we didn't have anything go to the window, but now I got to go back home and move all this stuff and pick up the stuff. And also, the wind destroyed my barbecue grill. So now I don't have any grill.
Boo.
I can't do steaks. I can't do vegetables. I can't do nothing. And so I don't even have that anymore. So I'm going to dunk on the wind.
God damn it, Mother Nature. What the fuck is the matter with you?
Did y'all get mud rain up there in Amarillo?
No, but they got snow the other day, like I said earlier. And
I heard they got some mud rain in Lubbock. It made me think of Mike Leach, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Yeah, it was, dude. It was one of those things like you forget, like how dark and just that red, kind of like mystique, the red dirt of driving around like 28 days later type shit. Like it's nuts. But anyway, James, I want to know who you're dunking on.
So this isn't my dunk, but since AJ brought it up, I wanted to at least mention Travis Scott. Rob, I know you're not a big wrestling guy, but wrestling kind of took over the internet on Saturday night when John Cena turned heel for the first time since 2003. And I guess I can understand why Travis Scott was there. His song Fiend is the song for WrestleMania.
Sure.
But he doesn't know how to do wrestling stuff. When he tried to do wrestling stuff and burst Cody Rhodes' eardrum and blackened his eye. And if you go back and look at it, he smacked the shit out of Cody.
And Cody's like, yo!
Like, it was a little bit funny. But, he'll have a receipt coming if he ever gets back into the ring. It's a little dunk-worthy. But
also, he was smoking weed in the ring.
Oh, that was like the third time he's done that on WWE TV.
He was like, and you're like...
As Pat McAfee said, Travis Scott's lighting up some sage. But no,
honestly, that seems pretty chill though. I would smoke weed in the ring.
It was great. But no, my real dunk kind of goes with yours, I think, a little bit, Rob. And I'm gonna dunk on QR codes this week. And this came into my mind when I was surfing Twitter, as a lot of stuff does, last week, and I saw someone visiting their significant other's headstone, and it had a QR code on it.
Oh, dear.
And I Googled it, I did a little research, and apparently this is a trend now, where people are putting QR codes on their headstones, and it's like a living memorial, so people can go to this QR code and add photos and add stories or whatnot. It's basically like a Facebook wall on a headstone. And I'm just like, why do we need this? Like, let people rest. Like, I don't want people, I'm not one to be buried anyways. If I was, I wouldn't want people coming up to my grave and scanning it with their phone. Just let me sleep. And, like, QR codes in general, like, why would people put, and I've seen this, why would people put a QR code on a highway billboard?
Right.
If I'm not driving, how am I gonna do that? Even if I'm in the passenger seat of a car, we're on the highway. It's going way too fast. I can't look up at a billboard and use the QR code. And also, like, how am I gonna scan a QR code that's on my phone? Like when a QR code comes up on your phone, what am I gonna do about that? And what happened to just sending links? I can click a link just as easily as I can line up my phone for a QR code. I just don't understand the point, the purpose, anything of it. And like in 2025, they're ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And it's only growing. So I'm just like, We need to take a step back and just make things easier. Fewer QR codes. I don't want to see them in a cemetery. I don't want to see them on the highway. Get them out of my life. QR codes. That's my dunk.
I've always wondered, especially with QR codes, if I'm watching the Spurs game from my couch and I'm watching the in-arena feed and they have take a picture of the QR code and be on the Jumbotron.
It never works.
It doesn't work? Okay, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's 20,000 people that are also trying to do that. So the whole network is jammed up and you just sit there and
what if I did it from my couch and I took a picture of me on my couch with that? Does that work?
I don't know.
Would you imagine if like you see me in the Frost Bank Arena in my chonas just like, go Spurs.
Dude,
No,
that would be epic.
What is QR? Does QR stand for something, or is it just someone just put some letters together?
Quentin Richardson.
There you go.
There you go.
That's my QR.
No, this plague on our society needs to be reined in. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I know we've gone long, so I'm going to try to keep this short. But we got a shout out the other day on Sirius XM Radio from Rob Bettis and Antonio Daniels. They talked about Rob's story of seeing him at Home Court America.
Yeah, I mean, he verified everything I said. He was like, "Hey, it wasn't a 30 or 40 pound vest. You know, it's hard to judge that when I'm a 10, 11-year-old kid." But I only referenced that because I used a 30, 40 pound weight vest. So what I'm saying is Antonio Daniels. No. What I am saying is that, you know, it was nice to hear that he wasn't like, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit. And he gave a shout out to Home Court and was like, yeah, Home Court was great. And so,
he was very like, Antonio Daniels spoke very honestly about it too. If you guys get a chance, it's a great little thing. I forgot what day it was, but it was last week on Give and Go. And Antonio Daniels was like, I think, you know, Rob Peters asked, hey, what's it like being the best player in a gym, especially when you're going against, like, you know, Joe Schmoes? And he was like, oh, it's the best feeling ever. But then you go to the NBA and now you're one of the Joe Schmoes. That's the hard part.
Well, and it was funny because Wob said, he was like, you know, it's got to be dispiriting if you're a guy that's played college basketball, you know, do D2, D3 level, you know, you're used to being the best player. I was like, he's literally describing the guy that told the story.
right.
It was like 10 years before that happened.
Well, right. And so, like, I wanted to, like, be like, hey, dude, you didn't crush my dreams. I ended up going and playing a lot of basketball, but at the same time, it's a situation where it was like, dude, yeah, that's NBA. That's never going to happen. That's what they do. That's crazy.
Well, no, and it's crazy to hear Antonio Daniels tell that story and remember it so vividly. And shout out Antonio Daniels, because, I mean, I used to see him up until a few years ago when I worked at HEB out in Leon Springs. He would come with his family and do all their grocery shopping. Oh, yeah. Bagged his groceries many a time.
Nice. You bagged his groceries? Nice. Well, I know I've told the story before, but I feel like now I got to tell my Antonio Daniels story because I feel everyone in San Antonio our age probably has one. Mine was after a basketball practice. So I was playing CYO basketball, and we were the later in the evening because we were like 5th, 6th grade, and we're having practice, and Antonio Daniels walks into the gym, and we're like, oh, shit, it's Antonio Daniels. And so our coach goes up to him. He's like, hey, Antonio, do you mind come talking to the kids? He's like, yeah, man, no problem. I'll go over there. So he goes over there and talks to us, and he's like, hey, guys, you know, it's really cool, teamwork, makes the dream work, all that fun stuff. And our coach goes, hey, Antonio, can we do a little bet with you? And he's like, yeah, what do you want to do? All right, well, how about this? If you make this free throw, we'll let these boys go home early. If not, they got to run ladders. And Antonio Daniels was like, deal, I'm in. So Antonio Daniels gets the ball, goes over to the free throw line. He starts his routine, stops, turns around, and just chunks it over his head. And he's like, y'all boys need to run.
That's perfect.
I thought that story was going that way.
And I was like, oh, Antonio, you're so cool. We just want to go to McDonald's, but now we got to run. I guess we're just going to go a little later now. But, yeah, dude. And he was just such a nice guy as a kid. And, you know, handshakes afterwards and all that good stuff. There was an adult league that he was in that he was going to go see his buddy play, but never forget, he's like, all right, here we go. Antonio Dan's great free throw shooter. Boom.
You got burned.
So
Yeah.
anyway, we've talked a lot of ball. A lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, we love a good Antonio Daniels story, obviously, on the Baseline Bums podcast. But if you're still here, if you're still listening to this, you're still watching us, we really, really appreciate you. We value you. We love you. This podcast would not. Yes, we love you hard. This podcast would not be the same without you. All the engagement, the comments, the viewership on every single platform, it's just phenomenal. And the response we're getting to just talking Spurs hoops is wonderful. So we're gonna keep going. We got a lot of fun things in the pipeline. Not only when we're looking forward to bracket episodes, but fun draft episodes in the future. Yeah, we got a lot of fun Baseline Bum stuff. And if you're not watching In the Building, you're not following Love You Hard TV, follow them as well. We got Love You Hard TV, and In the Building is now on radio. So a lot of exciting stuff happening over here in our universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Bums
I cannot
Nation.
wait. We are exploding in the happiest way.
Yeah.
Pause.
But I guess it's time to end our episode the way we end all of our episodes. And that's
with a go, a Spurs, a go.